Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings, family, brothers and sisters. This is Priest Yardon, the House of Wisdom. Join my readers today, Apprentice Priest Gabaria and Apprentice Priest Yakanan. Today, as you see, we're talking about the love of money. This is the topic of the class today, and it's so befitting for the society that we live in today. The society of capitalism and get money at all costs. Get money or die trying is the mantra of today's society. Whether in rap or in actuality with these businesses and these industries that rise up today. Everything today is predicated and based on money. So we're going to talk about the love of money. What is this? Is it wrong to get money? No. It's wrong to love money. Let's examine this concept. First, we must talk about what love is. We're going to start off in John 14, verse 12 or verse 21. Or AP Yakanan, talking about what love is. Many of us have a distorted ideology of what love is. A lot of us think because it says in the dictionary that it's a great overwhelming affection towards something, that's what it is. And that's what it means when it says in the Bible, to love something. But that's actually not the case. The Bible has many times things that are written in the Bible have changed over time as they progress in society. So the word for meat, for example, if you spend any time in the House of Wisdom, you know that meat in the Bible has essentially nothing to do with meat as we know it today. Today we think of meat as flesh, but meat in the Bible was a meat offering. It was grain, it was flour, those type of things, your agriculture, not from the flesh of an animal. Same thing with love. This word has changed and metastasized through history. So let's see in John 14:21 what love is, and we're going to continue on with this concept as well, most high willing.
John chapter 14, verse 21. He that have my commandments and keepeth them, he it is that loveth me.
Here we go. He said it right here pretty plainly. He that keepeth my commandments is he that loves me, is what Yahushua Jesus Christ is saying. He's not saying it's to just have some great affection and want to hug Christ. That's love. No, love is when you keep his commandments. Let's read on.
The rest of verse 21. And he that loveth me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him, and will manifest myself to him.
So he that loveth me shall be loved by my Father, which is the Most High, God, the creator of all things, our Abba. So this gives a new light to, John 3:16, where many people think, oh, God just loved everybody, and he just had so much emotion and everything for everybody. That's actually not the case. Only those who the Most High receives love from does he give love to. So this love here means that obviously the Most High, when it says in John 3:16 that the Most High so loved the world, it's not talking about he just had this overwhelming heartfelt desire to do something good. No, it just means he kept the commandments. He kept rule with the world. He did something good for the world by giving him his only son to sacrifice himself to consecrate a new covenant. Not saying he just loved everybody in the world, as then there will be contradiction here in John 14:21. And it's obviously not. He's saying those who love the Most High by keeping his commandments receive the love of the Most High. But let's continue on with this concept of love. Read on, Ak.
John chapter 14, verse 22. Judas saith unto him, not Issachar, Master, how is it that thou wilt manifest thyself unto us, and not unto the world? Then the Messiah the Prince answered and said unto him, If any man love me, he will keep my words, and my Father will love him, and will come unto him, and make our abode with him. Verse 24. He that loveth me, not keepeth not my sayings, and the word which ye hear is not mine, but the Father which sent me.
He that loveth me not keepeth not my sayings. So here he goes, saying the exact same thing, but in the negative. Saying those who love the high priest Yahushua keep his commandments. Those who do not love him do not keep his commandments. Let's go get a little bit more on that. 1 John 3:18. So we're showing you here that love is more than just an emotion towards something. Love is how you act and how you treat somebody or something. In this case, it's talking about Yahushua and talking about the Father, the Most High God. But let's read on. Let's get a little bit more on that. 1 John 3:18. And AP Yakinov, you're going to be Romans 13, chapter 8.
1 John, the 3rd chapter, the 18th verse. My little children, let us not love in word,
Let us not love in word. Don't just say, I love you, or I love you, Christ, or I love you, Most High. Don't just say that, but do what?
neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth.
And in deed and in truth. Indeed, not as one word, but in two separate words. In deed, in actions, in the things you do. You must do something. This is true love, not your emotion, as we're saying again. Love is keeping the commandments, laws, and statutes of whatever being you are doing it to. In this case, it's the Most High. But as you said, obviously you see the topic of class is about the love of money. So you're getting a little understanding on what we're trying to get at with this. Let's jump to Romans chapter 13, verse 8. But go and read that again, AP Gabaria, that 1 John 3:18.
1 John 3 and 18. My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth.
All right, so once again, we see love is your actions and not your words. Go ahead and read that, Romans 13, verse 8, AP Yakanan.
Romans chapter 13, verse 8. Owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law.
Yeah.
Verse 9. For this, thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
So now we see a lot more understanding on love here in Romans 13. Paul is telling us that love is encompassing keeping this commandment. You love your brother or your neighbor when you don't commit adultery with his wife. You love your brother or your neighbor when you do not kill him or you do not steal from him. This is true love. Not saying I love you, then go and stealing 50 out of his wallet. That's not true love. You can say you love somebody all you want, but if you're not keeping these commandments with them, you don't really love them. It's the same with the Most High. There's a scripture that says that there are many who love him in tongues, but their heart is far from him. These people, especially in Christianity today, talk about how much they love Jesus and all this kind of stuff, but they don't do anything that he told us to do. They don't talk about oblations, sacrifices, keeping these commandments. A lot of them even say we don't have to keep the commandments themselves, just the 10 commandments. That's kind of what a lot of Christian groups have boiled themselves down to, is we don't keep any of this stuff in Leviticus or Exodus or Numbers, whatever, but we keep these 10 commandments and that's it. But there are other groups that are talking about not even the commandments. We don't even need to keep them. We just, hug each other and that's it.
Just have love.
Yeah, exactly. Just have love. And that's not what true love is. And it's clear throughout here, many, many scriptures. But AP Gabaria, go and give me 1 Timothy 6 and 5. So we see here, love is keeping these commandments with your brother, with your neighbor, with the Most High, with Yahushua. Keeping his commandments and saying, this is love. Now, you can equate this with other things too. You can love, your spouse by walking in order with them, uplifting them, not tearing them down, supporting them as a husband or supporting them as a wife, whatever it may be. That's true love. Not just having emotion to them, but walking in order with them, keeping the commandments, the rule that they set forth. And also you can have this love with money. You can have this love with Satan. You can keep the love of Satan, keep the commands of Satan. So let's get here in 1 Timothy 6 and 5, where it talks about the love of money. And let's get an understanding of this. Let's read it with some comprehension. Now we know what love means, but we're going to start at the 5th verse.
1 Timothy, the 6th chapter and the 5th verse. Perverse disputings of men of corrupt minds and destitute of truth, supposing that gain is godliness.
So we see here, he's priming us to understand that these are corrupt men. These are people with corrupted minds and destitute, far from the truth. These are the people who say gain is godliness. When I got money, that's because God's blessing me. I was just thinking of a Kanye line where he say he's talking to God, and if you look at my life, I guess he's talking back. He's saying because he's amassed so much millions in wealth, God is talking to him. Absolutely not. God's not talking to you just because you have money, just because you have wealth. And I'm not doing that to disparage Kanye, but just people in general. Many of these pastors think the same thing, that just because you have millions of dollars or billions even, that God is blessing you, and that's absolutely far from the case. Let's read on.
From such withdraw thyself, but godliness with contentment is great gain.
Godliness with being content in whatever situation the Most High puts you in is great gain. Tobias said this to his son in the Apocrypha. He said that no matter if you are rich or poor, make sure you give alms and worship and praise the Most High. This is how we must be. No matter what situation we're in, whether we're rich or poor, high or low, we must always be content with godliness. Let's read on.
The 7th verse. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain that we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare.
So these people who get a bunch of money, a lot of money, who get rich in this world, not with the Most High, they have temptation. They have many snares. And we're going to talk about this as we move on, Most High willing. Let's read on. Ak.
And into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drawn men into destruction and perdition.
So money here is a pitfall. It is not a lot of times something that's beneficial to us. A lot of us think that money will solve all our issues, and that's absolutely not the case. It's an old adage in the world. More money, more problems. And that's completely true. Even the Bible itself is confirming this, that more money, you have a lot more problems that are going to come to your life. A lot of temptations and snares and traps. Let's read on.
And I just want to add to that, we all know the famous comedian, and maybe not, Robin Williams. All the money and the fame that he had, he committed suicide because he was miserable. Mm-hmm. He wasn't happy with that money. And you'll find that a lot of these celebrities, sports stars, they have all the money and the riches, but a lot of them are very miserable. And as Chief Priest always say, they're emaciated spiritually. Mm-hmm. So they're not content or even happy with their lives with all the money that they have.
Right. Money does not heal your wounds or your issues. Money is not a remedy for spiritual issues. But let's read on.
The 10th verse. For the love of money is the root of all evil.
For the love of money is the root of all evil. Many people get this wrong when they quote it. They say money is the root of all evil. And it's not money itself. Money can corrupt, but it's the love of money that corrupts. That is the root of all evil. Anybody understand this now? Since we went through what love is, anybody can tell me what this means? Hey, Uzia.
This means that we're willing to follow the commands of money.
Exactly. You follow the commands, the rule, the law of money, which is capitalism. It's getting money at all costs. Money is never satisfied. Nobody ever says, or most people don't say, I got $1 million, I'm good, I can rest, I can stop. Most people say, I got $1 million, but I get $2 million. I got $2 million, now I can get 5. I got 5 million, I can get 10. I can get so on and so forth. Most people love money when they start getting it, that they continually go on and they forget the Most High. Many people have erred in doing this. Go ahead and finish that up.
And a lot of them, they forget the Most High because they believe that them having that money, the Father's already in their lives and blessing them. So why continue in service in the Most High and praising the Most High when I got this money? It's only when they lose it when they come into the service of the Most High. And as we know here in the House of Wisdom, it's not the proper service and worship of the Most High, but nonetheless, that's when they have the words of the Most High in their mouth.
Right, exactly. A.B. Yakinan, give me Wisdom of Solomon 14:22. We're going to get that before we continue on. But finish that up, that verse up.
The 10th verse. The 10th verse. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows.
Like we just said, when these people loved money so much, they erred from the faith. They erred from receiving truly the Most High. They thought, like A.P. Gabario was saying, that they are received and they were good. They pierced themselves through with many sorrows because in the last days, when the Most High comes back, they're not going to be part of that. They're not going to be walking in with them because they followed after the rules of money and not the rules of the Most High. You got that, Abi Yakanan?
Yes, sir, I got it. Just to piggyback off that, like you just read, to be content what you have. That way, so when you do get the increase, you still have that foundation of how you need to operate without getting the big head.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Wisdom of
point.
Solomon, chapter 14, verse 22.
Actually, jump down to the 27th verse.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, verse 27. For the worshiping of idols, not to be named, is the beginning, the cause, and the end of all evil.
So the worshiping of idols not to be named is the beginning and cause of all evil. How does this tie in with 1 Timothy 6 and 10? If this is the beginning of all evil, worshiping of idols, and money, the love of money, is the beginning of all evil, the root of all evil, this is essentially saying that money becomes your idol. Money becomes your God. You worship money more than you worship the Most High. We have so many people doing that today. You just go on any social media platform, it's a bunch of people talking about money. Money, 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 that's it. If you're not talking about money, I don't want to talk. So that means if you're talking about godliness, I don't want to talk to you because you're not talking about money. Abominations. This is the root and the cause of all evil. The love of money or the love of idols and making money your idol. So there are many idols that cause issues with us in Israel. But we're going to focus on money. AP Gabar, if you give me Genesis chapter 14, verse 14, we're going to talk about some examples of brothers who executed this 1 Timothy 6. They either were righteous, with being content with what they had and worshiping the Most High more than money, or they erred and thrust themselves through or pierced themselves through with many sorrows by worshiping money or loving money more so than the Most High. So we're going to start in Genesis 14. We're going to talk about Abraham. We already know Abraham was righteous. Abraham was a godly man. Let's see how he operated when money came his way.
Genesis, the 14th chapter and the 14th verse. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan.
So we had a war going on. Sodom was ransacked, and they took all the goods, and they took also Abraham's brother Lot. Let's read on.
The 15th verse. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants by night, and smote them and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also bought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people.
So he smote this army that ransacked Sodom, and when they ransacked Sodom, they took all the goods with them. When Abraham came and set them in order, he took all the goods as well. Let's read on.
The 17th verse. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's dale. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High Power.
So, if, as I said, anybody who has spent any time in the House of Wisdom should know about Melchizedek. This man was a high priest. This man came to Abraham, bringing forth bread and wine, just like the high priest Yahushua Christ brought, and was a priest to offer sacrifices to the Most High, and Abraham took part. Let's read on and see what type of sacrifice Abraham gave.
And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High Power, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High Power, which has delivered thine enemies into thine hand. And he gave him tithes of all.
And Abraham gave tithes, which was a 10th part of his increase. He was increased when he went and fought against those who ransacked Sodom, because obviously he took all the cattle and all the women, and all the good things that they had stolen from Sodom. He took a 10th of that and gave it to the Most High. He didn't care about, I can't do that. Let me portion off and see if I can give him the worst, or let me do what I can do to make sure I keep all of it. No, he said, yeah, take all of it. Let me heave this up and stretch it up to the Most High. It's not mine, it's his, is what he said. This is what the righteous man did when wealth or riches of the world came his way. Let's read on.
21. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, give me the persons and take the goods to thyself.
So the king of Sodom came back and met with Abraham and said, hey, look, you did a good thing, man. Appreciate you, Abraham. Here, let me just give me the people. You can keep all the goods and all the money and all that stuff. Just give me all my people back. What did Abraham say?
And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto the heavenly Father, the most high power, the possessor of heaven and earth.
Abraham said, look, I already lifted up my hand to the Most High. I stretched it forth to him in a tithe offering. I dedicated my goods to him. Let's read on and see what else he said.
That I will not take from a thread, even a shoe latchet.
He said, I won't take a thing from you. I don't want none of the stuff you got. Take it back here. This stuff was bugging me anyway. Take it back. Read on.
And that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich.
I don't want you getting the credit for saying you made me rich. He said, I don't need these riches from you. Take it back. I don't want none of it. The Most High himself will bless me. He trusted more in the Most High than he did in the riches of the world. AP Yakina, if you give me Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 16. So look at how this righteous man, Abraham, operated. Abraham, or Abram at the time, didn't care about the riches of the world. He knew the power of the Most High and trusted in him way more than the riches of this world. But many people do err in trusting in these riches. Let's get another example of a righteous man, Nehemiah, and how he operated when money or finances were coming across his path. So we'll go ahead and read it. Go and get the 16th verse.
The book of Nehemiah, chapter 13, verse 16. There dwelt men of Tyre also therein, which bought fish and all manner of ware, and sold on the Sabbath unto the children of Judah and in Jerusalem. Then I contended with the nobles of Judah and said unto them, what evil thing is this that ye do, and profane the Sabbath day?
So, we're going to read the 18th verse. It gives us a little context.
Verse 18, did not your fathers thus, and did not our power bring all this evil upon us and upon this city? Yet ye bring more wrath upon Israel by profaning the Sabbath.
So, Nehemiah was just now coming out of the Babylonian captivity. And what happened in Babylonian captivity is that the Israelites were so wicked and ungodly, the Most High said, I will destroy them. And he did just that by the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar came through and wiped out all of Jerusalem, burnt down the temple, destroyed it. Nehemiah came through, and Ezra and his proteges, and they came and re-established the temple in Jerusalem to worship and sacrifice to the Most High. But he saw now that the nobles of Judah were allowing the Sabbath to be once again profaned. This day of rest where you worship the Most High, give sacrifice unto him, they were going out buying and selling. They were being corrupted by the love of money. They desired money so much that they said, I can't just do 6 days of this. I got to do 7. I got to do every day. I got to get money. I wake up thinking about money. Let's get some. How many people of us think about the same thing?
Yeah, some are so attached to making money. They say, I'll sleep when I die. I know we've heard that saying before, but that's all pertaining to the love of money.
Right. They wake up every day and all they can think about is getting some money. But let's see how Nehemiah, how he operated in this. Read on.
Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 19. And it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded that the gates should be shut and charged that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath. And some of my servants set I at the gates that there should no burden be brought in on the Sabbath day.
So Nehemiah, being honorable and didn't want the curses and the plagues to come back on Israel, said, all right, we're going to shut these gates. Nobody's coming in. Nobody's going out on the Sabbath day. Everybody in this city is going to worship the Most High. Anybody not in is not coming in to sell some wares. But some people still tried. This love of money was so prominent and so hard on them, they still came to the gates and were knocking like, can I come in, man? I got some fish. I know y'all want some fish, man. I know you're trying to do this and that. Let's read on and see what happened. What did Nehemiah do?
Verse 20. So the merchants and sellers of all kind of ware lodged without Jerusalem once or twice. Then I testified against them and said unto them, why lodge ye about the walls?
So you saw people, or Nehemiah saw people come in, these men of Tyre, trying to sell again. They waited at the gate. They said, I'm going to wait here. This is the perfect time, prime time. It's a Sabbath. I'm going to wait here, get ready to sell whenever they open these gates. What did Nehemiah say?
That's the day the sales going on.
Right. Some flash sales going on.
The rest of verse 21. If ye do so again, I will lay hands on you.
This man Nehemiah threatened them, said, I will hurt you if you keep trying to sell on this Sabbath day. If you keep loving money so much, I will put my hands on you. Read on.
From that time forth came they no more on the Sabbath.
Nehemiah must have been a scary man. These people said, all right, I'm backing off. I ain't coming no more. That love fled from them, or at least they didn't try to corrupt the ways of the Most High once again. Give me Mark 11, chapter 15, AP Gabaria. So we see here, Nehemiah was not playing. Nehemiah was serious. He could have easily said, you know what? I'm going to get some of that money too. How about I let y'all in, but you just pay me, 50 shekels each time y'all come through the gate. That'd be fair. I usually don't let y'all come in on Sabbath. I'll let y'all for 50 shekels. He easily could have done that. He easily could have let money corrupt him. But instead, he said, I will hurt you if you keep trying to provoke the Most High by breaking the Sabbath. Now, is this ungodly to threaten these people with physical violence, physical harm? I can show you that actually the high priest Yahushua did the exact same thing. Let's go and get that Mark 11, chapter 15.
Mark, the 11th chapter and the 15th verse. And they came to Jerusalem, and the Messiah went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers, and the seats of them that sold doves.
Read that again.
And it came to pass, and they come to Jerusalem, and the Messiah went into the temple and began to cast them out that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers.
Christ was in the temple flipping over tables, throwing people out, just like Phil on what was that, Fresh Prince, throwing people out the building, saying, get out, because these people were in here selling things. What else they did? In the seats of them that sold doves. Why did they were selling doves? Not just because they were nice birds, but because doves were a thing used for the sacrifice. They were in the temple saying, you know what, I know you want to give a sin offering. I know you got some bad sins on you. How about you just pay, $50 for this dove, and then we get you a sin offering? Absolutely abominable. These people took the gift of the Most High and corrupted it. They sold it for their own gain, for greed. They loved money so much, they said, forget the rules of the Most High of giving freely these sacrifices. How about we charge for them?
Yeah, charging $50 when it probably cost $15.
Right. Probably cost nothing. And they still were charging. These people out here throwing, and Yahushua did not stand for that at all. He didn't say, hey guys, could you please leave? Everybody tries to make Christ look like a soft guy.
Yeah.
But he was out here flipping over tables and tossed them out of the temple. He was not playing games. He said, get out here, this greedy gain. Because he knew the love of money was the root of all evil. He cast that out without even a thought. Or I don't even say without a thought, but without hesitation. He didn't come in here soft and wearing a band of tulips on his head and saying, guys, could you please leave? We don't do this over here. No, he said, get out, and flipped over their tables, tossed them out of the temple. He was a hard man, acting just like Nehemiah acted. Strong and stern for the Most High. Read on.
The 16th verse. It would not suffer that any man should carry any vessels through the temple.
So these Pharisees here, we're talking about, at least give me my doves, man. At least give me my bullocks. Christ said, no, we're going to use this for a sacrifice like it's supposed to be. Read on.
And he taught, saying unto them, is it not written, my house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves.
So these Pharisees, these Jews at the time, the rulers of the religion, or the worship of the Most High, took this house of prayer, this house of worship to the Most High, and made it a den of thieves, a den of taking it for their own godly or ungodly gain. And we see the exact same thing going on with Christians today. Unfortunately, we see them taking what is given to us, this free gift of the Most High, and essentially charging for it. Essentially saying, give me some tithes, and you get your personal prayer package in the mail. Abomination. Charging people for, quote unquote, closeness with the Most High. That's an absolute abomination. And the priesthood is not to do that at all. Obviously, money is necessary in this world, and money comes through. There are scriptures that talk about giving money and fruit and tithes, the things needed to keep the sacrifices going, but absolutely nobody charged to give a sacrifice. Nobody charged to get you close to the Most High. That was an absolute abomination. Let's read on.
The 18th verse. And the scribes and the chief priests heard it and sought how they might destroy him. For they feared him, because all the people was astonished at his doctrine.
Look at how the love of money was working on these Pharisees. Now, Christ was righteous. Christ didn't succumb to the love of money. He loved the Most High more than them. But the Pharisees, these high elites in the temple, they said, man, we got to kill Christ, man. This man's messing with our money. This man's messing with our paper. We do the exact same thing today. We seek to kill and harm everybody who is, as I said, messing with our paper, destroying our money flow. We want to go and kill them. And look what we said, because all people were astonished at his doctrine. Meaning all people were amazed, like, whoa, I was paying 50 pence for a dove every day. I get them for free now? Oh, that's on point. They're like, nah, we can't have that. Y'all messing around money. We were getting rich off of that. Abominations. Christ stood strong, but these Pharisees did not. They succumbed to the love of money. And as we said, this is the root of all evil. They sought to kill Christ because he played with their money. This is how evil they are. The Messiah, the Prince, the one who came to bring us a new covenant, they want to kill him. That is one of the highest levels of evil possible. They saw his miracles and they still rejected him. That is blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. This is how wicked money makes people. Now let's get another example. John 12:3, AP Yakanan. We're going to talk about Judas Iscariot. We talked about him a few times in the House of Wisdom. But a lot of people in a lot of Christian theologies, they talk about Judas, they talk about him betraying Christ and all these kind of things, but they don't talk about why or even how. But the Bible, scriptures show us why he betrayed Yahushua and how. How was it even possible that this could happen? Let's go and get that. John chapter 12, verse 3. Another example of a brother who submitted himself to the love of money, not the love of the Most High.
John chapter 12, verse 3. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of the Messiah the Prince, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment.
So Yahushua was getting anointed. This was a costly oil. This wasn't something that you just, get from the store just for like $2. This was something expensive. This is something worth a lot of money in the world. Read on.
Verse 4. Then said one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him, why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor?
Judas Iscariot came and said, yo, Christ, what you doing? We could have sold that. For the poor, you know what I'm talking about? This man had evil motivations and then tried to throw in, but I'm trying to give it to the poor, But let's see what the scriptures say. Was he really trying to give it to the poor? We already know he wasn't. Let's go and read on.
Verse 6. This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the bag and bare what was put therein.
Judas Iscariot was a thief. He had the bag, as we say, even today. I'm in my bag. All right, you are just a Judas Iscariot. You are the same mindset. Give me Luke 22, verse 3, AP Yakanan. So we see here, Judas Iscariot held the bag. He was the accountant for the apostles, essentially. He had this bag. He had the money flow, and he was liking to skim off the top. He liked taking this thing that the Most High gave him, this free gift, and skimming off of it, saying, I can get some money off of this. He wasn't really in it for the miracles that Yahushua was doing, or bringing a new covenant, or saving the world essentially from their sins. He came in it because he loved that money, and that money corrupted him. Let's see how. We'll explain how in Luke 22, verse 3.
Luke chapter 22, verse 3. Then entered Satan into Judas, surnamed Issachar.
Then entered Judas into Judas Iscariot. Because of his ungodliness, because of his wickedness, Satan had the opportunity to enter into him. If you brothers don't know how sin operates, how Satan operates, go and check that class out on our YouTube page, The Law of Sin. You'll see that Judas was trespassing by stealing. This is a trespass. He stole from even the high priest. This was a high trespass. And Satan took all advantage to use that against him, and he entered into him and caused him to do this. Read on.
Being of the number of the 12, and he went his way and communed with the chief priests and captains, how he might betray him unto them. And they were glad and covenant to give him money.
There we go again. That love of money. He didn't just do it just because he just wanted to betray him. He did it because he wanted some money. Satan came into him and rationalized, hey, man, you know these people want to kill Christ. You know you can get, like 30 pieces of silver off of this, man. That's a good come up right there. This is how Satan operated. This man loved money, so it came to him in the weak spot. Get some money off of this. You can profit off of this. Satan used him to kill the high priest Yahushua, or to have him killed. This is how he did it, because this man originally was a lover of money, and loved money so much he loved money more than the Most High. This is what the love of money does. This is how it's the root of all evil. The love of money causes you to betray your own brother. The love of money causes you to betray the Most High. The love of money causes you to reject the high priest Yahushua and exit this covenant. This was the wickedness that came out of that love of money. You
I got a precept.
All right, and then while you're doing that, also give me that Josephus as well.
Oh, and
Yeah.
okay. This is Isaiah 52 and 3. For thus saith the Heavenly Father, ye have sold yourselves for naught. Looking at Judas, looking at the Pharisees, and all these that have the love for money. And it reads, and ye shall be redeemed without money. It's not going to take this money to redeem you. Christ shed his blood on the cross, and none of us had to pay anything for it. It was because of the Most High's love for us that he redeemed us. And look what we do with money. We put it above everything, above the Most High, above our families. And we know the saying, you will sell your mama for $20.
That's a good point. Hey, Biakon, give me Deuteronomy 28 and 68, and while you're getting that Josephus. You have something? All right, you're good. But yeah, that's a good point. That this money is not going to save us. This money is not the thing that is going to increase us or uplift black people. We think because we're poor, you just throw some money in here and we're good. Absolutely not. We have deeper rooted issues than that. We have issues that transcend money, that these physical things cannot remedy. Like you said, we are so in love with money, though, that we will even sell our mama for $20. We'll do all these kind of things just for the riches that these Gentiles have given us. Let's get that Deuteronomy 28, 68.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. And the Most High shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee.
So as Egypt is just talking about captivity, he would take us into captivity on ships as slaves. Only people who went into slavery on ships are black people, but that's not what we espouse the house of wisdom. We have so much more understanding and wisdom than just breaking down Deuteronomy 28, 68. But read on.
Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
And no man shall buy you or ransom you out of that situation, out of that slavery. Money will not save you, is what the Most High is telling us. Forget this money, worship the Most High, and then we will be saved. We'll be taken out of this abominable land or this abominable situation. It's not about the money. It's not about getting money. It's not about giving us money. It's not about that. It's not about getting reparations for people who murdered our ancestors and enslaved us. It's not about getting money out of them. It's about worshiping the Most High and getting back into our covenant. That is what will save us. Not reparations, not money, not finances. Let's get another example of a brother who was wicked and abominable, and it was all because of money. Let's get that. Josephus, book 1, chapter 2, verse 2. So Josephus was a historian of the Jews, of the Israelites, and he recounted our history, including the time of creation. So he talked about Cain. Let's see what he said about Cain. Go ahead and read that, AP Gabaria.
The book of Josephus, book 1, chapter 1, chapters 2, verse 2. And when Cain had traveled over many countries, he, with his wife, built a city named Nod, which is a place so called. And there he settled his abode, where also he had children. However, he did not accept his punishment in order to amendment, but to increase his wickedness.
So Cain was a fugitive. He was running away from the curse that the Most High put on him. And he went into his land of Nod and tried to continue his life, but obviously in ungodliness. Read on.
But he only aimed to procure everything that was for his own bodily pleasure, though it obliged him to be injurious to his neighbors. He augmented his household substance with much wealth.
He augmented his household substance with much wealth. How did he receive this wealth? Read on.
By rapine and violence.
By rapine and violence. He took it by force. He didn't say, I'm going to make an honest living. He said, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take what's mine. They didn't want it anyway. I'm going to go and take it. Sounds like somebody very similar, but we'll read on and see. Right. Let's see if people can kind of connect the dots together. Let's go. Let's read on.
He excited his acquaintance to procure pleasure and spoils by robbery.
By robbery. By double-handed actions. Signing a contract or a treaty with one hand behind his back with a dagger ready to stab him once they turn around. That's how Cain operated. Read on.
And became a great leader of men into wicked courses.
This man, Cain, was exceedingly wicked, and one of the key things was his love for money. Read on.
He also introduced a change in that way of simplicity wherein men lived before, and was the author of measures and weights.
Cain was the one who first started issuing currency. It was all Cain. These men lived, and it wasn't about, this is my land, this is mine. You got to pay me $50 for that. That wasn't how people lived in this early stage of creation. Cain was the one who came in and said, we're going to make a currency system. We're going to put it together, and you're going to submit yourself to it. And this bill is 1, but this same bill made out of the same paper is 2. And this one is 50. And this one's worth way more than all the other ones. Cain was the one, and I'm the one who owns the 50. Y'all don't own it. Y'all got the 1. That's how Cain operated. Read on.
And whereas they lived innocently and generously, while they knew nothing of such arts, he changed the world into cunning craftiness.
Into cunning craftiness. This wasn't just, he didn't do it so overtly. He wanted to trick people into following this way of doing things, because nobody will willingly submit to something that was going to be so oppressive. He had to cunningly trick them into engaging in that way. Read on.
He first of all set boundaries about lands.
He was the first one to set a boundary in lands. He was the first one that said, this is mine. None of y'all can cross it. If you cross it, I'm going to kill you. You stay over there. Cain was the first one to do that. Read on.
He built a city and fortified it with walls. And he compelled his family to come together to it, and called that city Enoch, after the name of his oldest son Enoch. Now Jared was the son of Enoch.
So Cain, this is talking about Cain's lineage. He actually copied the righteous lineage. Just as you have a righteous Enoch, a righteous Jared, a righteous Lamech, and Mahalalel, Cain copied them because he wanted to be like them. He wanted the grace and the glory that was given to them that he did not receive. So he copied them in their name and their action. Well, but his actions were actually far from them. Read on.
Now Jared was the son of Enoch, whose son was named Mahalalel, whose son was Methuselah, whose son was Lamech, who had 77 children by 2 wives, Celia and Ada. Of those children by Ada, one was Jabal. He erected tents and loved the life of a shepherd. But Jabal was born of the same mother with him, exercised himself in music, and invented the psalteries and the harp. But Tubal, one of his children by the other wife, exceeded all men in strength, and was very expert and famous in martial performance. He procured what tended to the pleasure of the body by that method.
So these people were just increasingly wicked and only did things that pleasured them, that were for the pleasure of their own body, getting money, getting all things pleasurable. Read on.
And first of all invented the art of making brass. Lamech was also the father of a daughter whose name was Naam, or Naamah. And because he was so skillful in the matter of divine revelation that he knew he was to be punished for Cain's murder of his brother, he made that known to his wives. Nay, even while Adam was alive, it came to pass that the prosperity of Cain became exceeding wicked.
So each one of Cain's lineages, each one of his offsprings become more and more wicked, more and more abominable. You see how wicked Cain was? Exercising practice of usury, of charging interest, of robbing people, of rapine and violence to get gain, to get money. Each and every one of his kids became more wicked and more wicked. Read on.
Every one successively dying, one after another, more wicked than the former. They were intolerable in war.
They were intolerable in war. You could not stand against them in war. They were a great war machine, a beast to get that money. They weren't warring because you did something bad to them. They were warring because they wanted your money, just as I said earlier. Read on.
They were intolerable in war and vehement in robberies.
They robbed like nobody else. They robbed you blind. They did everything, and they tricked you. Like I said earlier, they took cunning craftiness to rob you, to trick you. They did all these kind of things to get money out of your hands and into their pockets. Read on.
Hence the scripture in Ecclesiastes, I'm going to read it real quick. It says that riches are not comely for a niggard. And what shall an envious man do with money? It's right here before you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what Cain and his family members are doing with wealth.
And a niggard is a miserly person, somebody stingy with money, somebody who doesn't want to help his brother out or help out his neighbor or dedicate to the Most High. This is a niggard, somebody who just is so stingy with his money, he just wants to hoard it up and keep it to himself. This is, like you said, exactly how Cain operated. Go on and read on.
And if anyone were slow to murder people, yet he was bold in his profligate behavior. What was that again? Profligate behavior in acting unjustly and doing injuries for gain.
So they did all these type of things just to gain some money. AP Yachanan, you give me Jude chapter 1. He's going to talk a little bit about Cain and people acting like Cain, showing you that there is a spirit of Cain that lives on, that continues on. Even after the flood came and destroyed them all, Cain has spirit on him that proliferated throughout the world. And it's still in play this very exact same day. Go and get that Jude chapter 1 and start at verse 11.
Jude chapter 1, verse 11. Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain and ran greedily after the error of Balaam.
They ran greedily after the error of Balaam for what?
For reward.
For a reward, to gain something. This is talking about Moses when he was coming out of Egypt. There were many people with him who were wanting to side with Balaam. saying, yeah, curse us, man. Just help us out, man. We'll just give us something and we'll help you out, I should say. But they perished. Read on.
And perished in the gainsaying of Kor.
They perished in gainsaying, talking about let's get some money out of this. That's what their conversation was about. Their conversation was about nothing but money. If you're doing the same thing, all you speak about is money, you have the same spirit of Cain on you. But there's a specific group of people who have this on them as well. Read on.
And I want to just say something. Through my experience dealing with a lot of different brothers coming up in this gospel, you know when brothers have fallen away from the gospel, when your conversation used to always be about the Most High, you know, bringing down this kingdom, rising up Israel. Then all of a sudden the conversation switches where you might talk to the brother and all he talks about is money. He don't talk about anything else but money and how well he's doing and how the Father is blessing him. And the conversation is no more spiritual but now carnal. You know that he has that spirit of Cain on him now. And that the Holy Spirit have left him.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate case. Yeah, it's a very unfortunate case that some of our brothers still succumb to this, even with the miracles that were going on when Moses was coming out of Egypt. Still, people had that spirit of Cain on them for carnal gain, for pleasures. Just as it said in Josephus that they wanted pleasures, so these people in Sinai, they didn't want this light bread, that manna from heaven. They wanted some doves. They wanted some flesh to eat, to satisfy their bellies, their physical bellies, but their spirit was lean. Go down to verse 7. It's going to talk about another group of people who had this spirit of greed on them. And AP Gabari, forgive me, Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 48. Go and read that 7th verse, AP Yakanan.
Jude chapter 1, verse 7. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner.
Sodom and Gomorrah as well had this same spirit of Cain on it, greed. Read on.
Giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire.
Are set forth as an example. If you read the Bible, you should know none of this stuff, absolutely not even one word was put here just superfluously. This was put here so that you can learn from it, so you can see an example, whether it was a good example or a bad one. These brothers that talked about in Sinai with Moses, they weren't just put here, they weren't just there and written about just so you can know that Moses had some enemies. It was so you can know that in these last days, this is going to be the same exact thing. People chiding against you and naysaying. Sodom was put here as the same example so we could learn from it. So what was the issue with Sodom? They were homosexuals? Is that the main issue? Actually, no. That's what we know it for. That's what Christianity has told you Sodom was about. And they weren't doing that, but it was a byproduct of the real main issue. Go and get that, Gabaria. Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 48.
Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 48. As I live, saith the Heavenly Father, Sodom, thy sister, has not done, she nor her daughters, as thou hast done, thou and thy daughters.
So the Most High, through Ezekiel, is talking to the children of Israel, and he's essentially condemning them, saying, y'all did some wickedness that was worse than what Sodom did. Sodom doesn't even touch the type of wickedness y'all did, but now he's going to go on and say what the iniquity or the wickedness of Sodom was.
And the scriptures also say that my people have become more wicked than the wicked.
Right. We love money more than these people have. Let's read on.
49. Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom, pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her daughters.
Pride, fullness of bread, abundance of idleness. All these type of things that come from riches. Abundance of wealth, they are, essentially abundance of wealth is that fullness of bread. They just had so much. They had the coffers running over with just gold and money. That's how we saw what happened with Abraham. When he went to war with those people who invaded Sodom and took the riches, he got a bunch of riches because Sodom just had an abundance and was easily overthrown. And they had idleness. This is where you get that homosexuality from. They just had idleness of time. They weren't worried about where am I going to do these crops because they had overabundance. They weren't saying where am I going to get money from because they had overabundance. So they just sat back and sat around and thought of some type of wickedness that they could do. But that was a byproduct of the main wickedness that the Most High talked about, was their love of money. And what else?
Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy.
Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. Sodom and Gomorrah, all they did was oppress the poor. They got riches and didn't care about the poor people in their community. They just said, we're going to get this 1% rich. We're going to be so overly rich, and y'all are just going to be our servants, essentially, serving this money. This is what the love of money does. And the Most High sent forth fire to destroy them because of their love of money, because of their greed. AP Yakana, if you give me Revelations 11, verse 7. So, as you said, Sodom, their issue wasn't essentially the homosexuality. That was obviously wrong, but their main issue was that pride, that fullness of bread, not caring for the poor and needy. They loved money and did not love the Most High. They put money as their idol and their God and not the Heavenly Father. So, just as we said, there's a place that has, or a people that have the spirit of Cain, the spirit of Sodom, and actually Egypt as well persists too. Let's go and get that. Revelations 11, and you can start at verse 7.
Revelation chapter 11, verse 7. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them, and kill them. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt.
There's a place with the spirit of Sodom and Egypt. So obviously we already talked about the spirit of Sodom is not just homosexuality. That may be a byproduct. Look at society today. But it is that wealth, that abundance of richness, and not caring for the poor, oppressing the poor always. In Egypt, slavery, enslaving a mass group of people. There's a place that has this exact same spirit on it. And this is obviously prophecy. This is talking about the future. What does this sound like to people? Having the spirit of Cain, that was about rapine and violence, stealing land, stealing money, and the spirit of hoarding up that money and enslaving a group of people. Anybody know? What does that sound like? Sound like what? Yeah, it sounds like today. Sounds like the United States of America. Sounds like Western societies. Sounds like Western European societies that have enslaved us, had abundance of money, were searching about, looking to get money, and did nothing but steal and rob and kill people to get that money at all costs. Got money or died trying.
Also known as colonialism.
Right, colonialism. And if you look at the capitalism, the first use of it was, I think, in the 1800s, where they were it was a socialist who was using it as a derogatory term. People who were capitalizing. That's what it means. And they just took it and ran with it. It's like us using the term nigger. They used it against us, but we just took it and said, all right, we're going to make it our own word and ran with it. Now we use it as a term of endearment, which is foolishness. But they did the same with capitalism. They took capitalism that was supposed to be a negative thing and took and said, yeah, that's us. We make money at all costs. We capitalize on our brother and sister. That's what we do. That's us. And now we look at it like it's a good thing. Like capitalism is great. Capitalism did so much good for the world. You know, one thing I hear a lot is, people who condemn communism, and I want to say, just make it clear, we're not communists or socialists at all here at the House of Wisdom. We don't preach that. We're preaching a new society, not making this one better. But the hypocrisy that you see in these people. They talk about communism has killed like 60 million people or something like that. That's what they say, and that's one of the reasons why they say communism is bad. But look at how many people died in the name of capitalism. From the history of even just the United States alone, not considering all other countries. Look at how many people the United States has killed because they want to establish their rule as capitalist people. Starting from the Genesis, where they killed off all the Native Americans in the land, to rob them of their money, just like Cain did. Or not their money, but their land, just like Cain did, and their money. Look at them enslaving people, shipping millions of people over and having them die, and then going to war just to make sure you keep your financial stability. How many people has that killed? How many people has capitalism killed? Probably way more than 60 million. Probably probably even close to the billions, I would assume. From all the times past, every decade or every century up until this very day, capitalism has probably killed, I would estimate, far more people than any communist people have. So let's talk about a little bit about this history of America, or how they, being a money-loving society, show these same attributes of Cain, of Sodom, and of Egypt. We can start off with talking about how, kind of the Federal Reserve came about. Actually, we won't start there. We'll just talk about on a basic level. Talking about us, how capitalism supports us killing each other and doing anything we can to get money. It makes money the forefront of our mind. We care so much about money, that's all we think about. We go to sleep, like we talked about earlier in class, getting money. We kill each other over sneakers and money and dollar bills, green things that mean absolutely nothing. This is what we fight for and kill each other for. Nothing godliness, nothing righteous, but just to essentially gain off of our brother, or to increase our financial standing.
By any means necessary.
Right, any means necessary. If you go down to on that sheet that I gave you, go down to that excerpt from CBS News about Daraprim. So another example is that you set up industries that don't care about the welfare of the people, but only about making money, about their bottom line. That's it. They don't care about the environment. They don't care about all this kind of stuff. That's another crazy thing, is that they try to say it's on us to save the environment, when I think probably about 90% of all the stuff that goes into the environment that's harmful comes from like 3% of the businesses. It's all these industries doing it, and this is that type of oppression. All right, you go fix it. That's like me burning down a house and then telling everybody in the house, hey, you guys go fix it. What? That makes no sense. You have these type of businesses that rise up, that they're all about their bottom line. They don't care about you. They don't care about your welfare. They just care about making $1 off of you. One of those that probably everybody should know, I'm sure I don't have to go too deep into it, is the pharmaceutical industry. These people do not care about your well-being, about making sure you're actually healed. They just care about getting some dollars off of you. And they know that this is almost most of the time a life and death scenario. So if, for example, with food, if you have a bunch of options with food, if you see some cookies that are $50, you're gonna be like, I don't need some cookies. I'll get something else. I don't need that. But when it comes to your life and death, if you say, I'm gonna die if I don't have this drug, they can raise it to any price they want. They can say, oh, this thing that takes us 2 cents to make is actually worth $5,000. So you gonna pay it or what? You gonna go on the ground or you gonna keep living? What's up? They have that type of power because they love money. And this is the type of oppression that the love of money puts on you. Just like what the Pharisees were doing. They knew the oblations, the sacrifice, were for the healing of the people, and they knew that was necessary to please the Most High. So what they do? Oh, you have to do these oblations. How about you pay us a little bit of money? We'll get you right. Just give us a little bit. Oh, you said you only pay for a sin offering. You want a sin and trespass? Oh, that'd be an extra 50 pence. Abomination. And this is exactly, in a way, in the same concept, what the pharmaceutical industries do.
And if you throwing a drink offering, we'll give you a discount.
Right. Telling you to bundle it all together. Abominable. Get that that excerpt from CBS News where they talked about that drug, Daraprim. So this is something that the pharmaceutical industries have done to us, showing the greediness, the love of money that they had.
CBS News, Daraprim. The rights of Daraprim was purchased in August by a new company, Turning Pharmaceuticals, which promptly increased the price from $13.50 per tablet to $750 per tablet.
Wow.
A 5,000% jump.
A 5,000% jump. Not 5%, not 0.5%, 5,000% jump when they bought it. And this wasn't even like over time. They bought it, and once they bought it, it went from $13.50 to $750 for a drug. And it's going to tell you what this drug is used for. Read on.
The New York Times reported, Daraprim, the common name for the drug Promethazine, is the only medication for treating you pronounce that?
Toxoplasmosis.
An infection contracted from cat parasites that can cause birth defects.
Look at how serious this disease is. And they made a drug that was treating it. But look at what they said. Is the only medication for treating toxoplasmosis. The only drug. This is your only choice, your only option. And now we raise it from $13.50 a tablet to $750 a tablet. Yeah, you're going to pay up.
Yeah.
This is a cartel. You have no other option. You're going to pay this money. Extortion.
Yeah.
Read on.
It is also used.
Well, before you read on, let's see what it said again. It causes birth defects. You can either have a baby with a deformed head and some 2 arms, or no, 2 arms is normal, 3 arms or something like that, something crazy, or you can pay this $750 per tablet, and you probably got to take about 15. So how much you going to pay? What you going to do? You going to have a baby that's distorted? Yeah, exactly. You going to have a baby with birth defects, or you going to pay this money? Read on.
It is also used as a co-treatment for HIV infection, some cancers, and malaria. Infectious disease physicians and advocates wrote a letter to the company urging them to reconsider the price increase. Under the current pricing structure, it is estimated that the annual cost of treatment for toxoplasmosis for the primathene component alone will be $336,000 for patients who weigh less than 60 kilometers, 132 pounds.
60 kilograms, yeah, 132 pounds. So if you're a lightweight person, I don't know too many people who are 132 pounds. If you're under this, you're going to have to pay, $336,000 a year for this drug. Now, what happens if you weigh like a normal weight? How much does this raise up to? Read on.
And $634,500 for patients who weigh more than 60 kilograms. The letter said.
Look at how much they love money. Who makes $634,000 a year? Who makes
one
this?
person?
Right, from one person. How many people you know makes this much money a year? I don't think I know anybody who makes this much money a year. Yeah, just to give away the drugs, not including living expenses and housing and all this kind of stuff. And then, if you're most of the time you're in the hospital and you receive these drugs. So how much more is your hospital bill because you're staying at the hospital? You have to pay for the doctors. This is just the drug.
Yeah, they're gonna bump that up.
Yeah, that's gonna be an easy $1 million right there. Read on.
This cost is unjustifiable for the medical vulnerability patient population in need of this medication and unsustainable for the healthcare system. The jump in cost is particularly surprising because Daraprim is offered patient drug developed more than 60 years ago.
So Daraprim isn't even, it's not even under patent. It's something that was developed 60 years ago. It's what they call off-patent drug. Anybody can essentially make it, but they're talking about, this is gonna go up 5,000%. It's gonna be $750 a tablet. This old drug. Imagine getting an old car and people are talking about, it's gonna be $634,000. Excuse me, a 60-year-old car? Is that much? Absolutely not. Why would you do the same thing with drugs? Read on.
Turning Pharmaceutical CEO Martin Cedric told CBS this morning the drug is not overpriced compared to its peers.
The drug is not overpriced. $750 a tablet is good. That's reasonable. We could have made it $752. We saved y'all, a little bit. Keep going on.
The drug was unprofitable at the former price. At this price, it is a reasonable profit, not excessive at all, Strecker said.
This makes no sense. And this is what the love of money makes people say and makes people do. Right. This makes no sense. How many people you know can afford $600,000 a year on just drugs? And he says that's not excessive. That's normal. We can do that. Read on. Go ahead and finish that up.
He claimed the money will allow the company to develop newer, better drugs.
Newer and better drugs that they can charge $800 a pop for.
Yeah.
Foolishness. API, can I go back on the page above that? Read that about where it says the alternative daily. about the pharmaceutical companies gifting money to the doctors and to hospitals. So pharmaceutical companies spend so much trying to make sure their drugs stay in circulation, trying to make sure that doctors prescribe their drugs. The doctors get kickbacks. They get, a certain amount for prescribing a certain amount of that drug or whatever it may be. So let's read a little bit about that.
TheAlternativeDaily.com. A recent study revealed that drug companies spent nearly $84 million on marketing pharmaceuticals in the District of Columbia during 2011.
And this is just in one city, District of Columbia, D.C. $84 million in 2011. Read on.
Almost 19 million of this amount was for gifts to the hospitals, physicians, and health care providers. Researchers at George Washington University School of Public Health and Health Services reported that 12 physicians in the area received lavish gifts that totaled more than $100,000 apiece in 1 year.
So they got even the doctors in it. That's why I say even on a low level, this is invasive in us, this love of money. Let's look at on a now legal level, how this invades our politics as well. I won't say our politics, but the politics of this nation as well. If you go down to where it talks about lobbying, what kind of things do the pharmaceutical companies do with lobbying? Now we see here that they lobby, in a sense, the doctors. They go to the doctors and say, hey, we'll give you a kickback. You just keep prescribing our drug and not this drug, or even if they don't need drugs, just prescribe it anyway. It's safe, and you get like $100,000 extra a year on top of the income you already get. That is what the love of money does. Makes you prescribe these drugs when people don't really need it, or it's not really helpful, or oppressing the people who have essentially no money, causing them to get more in debt because you want a little $100,000 a year. So the pharmaceutical companies also do this with the government. They go to the government and say, hey, don't make laws that are bad for us, or make laws that are good for us. We will, give you some money. This is what lobbying is. If people don't know, lobbying is essentially legal bribery. They are bribing people with their money, with their finances. So for all those people who think, voting is all important and all this kind of stuff, you got to vote your dollars. If you want to vote and make a change in society, you better have some millions ready to give to some politician. That's how you really make a change, an abominable, wicked change. Not by going out fighting on behalf of the United States government, or going out casting your ballot. They look at your ballot like, oh, they wanted him, that's cute. This dude's giving me $1 million, so what you got? Let's go and read what the pharmaceutical companies do with these politicians.
We have here lobbying. Big Pharma also spends millions of dollars a year trying to fight against state laws aimed to restrict the amount of prescription opioids.
So if anybody's watching the news at all, we have what's called a opioid epidemic. When we were on crack, that was just, bad seed. But when, white boys are on opiates, it's an epidemic, right? So lawmakers want to make laws that say, you can only prescribe this amount of opiates. And once we finish this up, I have a little anecdote of how eager hospitals are to provide you with drugs. But let's read on.
It says, the companies who make the prescription painkillers like Oxycontin, Vicodin, and fentanyl spend $880 million on campaign contributions and lobbying initiatives from 2006 through 2015.
Campaign contributions. So how can you say you're voting for this person and you expect them to do the things for you when their hand is in the pocket of Big Pharma?
Yeah.
Where are they going to be for you, or are they going to go for these guys who actually finance their whole campaign so they can even get elected, who can even get in power? Obviously, the choice is clear. And if you don't do that, if you say, I'm going to be upstanding, I'm going to fight for the people, you're not going to have a long tenure in politics.
Oh, no.
Not at all. Read on.
It says, this is 200 times more than the amount of money spent towards advocating for the limiting prescription painkillers and increasing state policies. Big pharma companies are willing to spend as much money as they need to in order to keep the opioid use up.
Man, that is a cartel. These people are spending all this money making sure you keep getting their drugs. They spare no expense in making sure you keep making them money. This is the love of money, perverting judgment and perverting politics for your own personal gain. When these people are supposedly supposed to be the gatekeepers, essentially, protecting you, making sure all the companies and everything going on in society is for your benefit. They say for the people, but they're really just for these corporations, for these big businesses with a lot of money and a lot of dollars to influence them. If you don't have money, you are not voting. That's just plain and simple. If you don't have dollars to give these politicians, your vote means nothing but some dirt to them. It means absolutely nothing unless you have that money. This is how the pharmaceutical companies act. They don't care about you or healing you or making things better for you. They care about their bottom line. This is the love of money. And one thing to say about opiates is that they're just like heroin, essentially. There's very little chemical difference between that and heroin. So you're taking these opiates and getting this heroin-like effect, and then when you get cut off and you're addicted, now you go to the streets and get heroin. That happens time and time again. And I went to the hospital one time for a little minor injury to my finger, and I was, it looked worse than it was actually. But once I got there, it was essentially, hey, you want some drugs? You want to get something to ease the pain and stuff? I'm like, I'm good and I'm straight. And they came back later, hey, you need some drugs or anything? What's up? You need that? I'm like, nah, I'm fine. And they finally got me to see a doctor. They're gonna stitch up my finger, and they essentially said, okay, we're gonna pump you with some morphine and all kind of stuff. I was like, dang. I was like, and they gave me the impression that he was gonna be prodding around my finger, doing all this kind of stuff. So I was like, fine, I'll take it. Thankfully I was good. I didn't get addicted or nothing like that. But all they did was stitch up my finger. Put one stitch in it, that's it. And it sent me home. But I needed all these drugs for that, all these painkillers. They're ready to pump you full of these drugs, to get you hooked on it, and now you're stuck. You're a reoccurring customer. You're always coming back. And then I left my wallet at home, so I didn't have my insurance card. When I got the bill, that thing was $4,000. All they did was put water on my hand and stitch it up and pump me full of drugs. $4,000 just for that. I could have done that at home, literally. I'm not even exaggerating. I literally could have done that at home, and they're talking about $4,000 to pay this doctor so he can have his nice little Mercedes. This is the love of money. This is what perverts our society, or one of the many things. When you set money as your idol. Go and give me that. We're going to jump to the government level, talking about the banking system, talking about essentially the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a publicly owned private bank, if you get what I mean. It's complicated, and it's meant to be. And the Rothschilds, we're not going to get too much into them. We're not going to get into the conspiracy and all that kind of stuff. But it's documented. They wrote a letter to the Morgans in New York, the Rothschilds in London. They wrote a letter, and this is what they said. Go and read that thing highlighted in that yellowish color. Read that about what the Rothschilds said to the Americans.
European banking in America. Letter written from London by the Rothschilds to their New York agents introducing their banking method into America. The few who can understand the system will be either so interested in its profits or so dependent on its favors that there will be no opposition from that class.
So the few who understand the system, they knew this was a complicated system, and that's designed. Money can be pretty simple if you let it be. You just get some gold, this is how much money I have. All right, cool, that's plain simple. And you trade off of that, whatever it may be. But they made all these complicated things, these rules and regulations. You can print at this time, but you can't print, then you can't do this, and you have to give this much interest. It's complicated. If you dig into this stuff, it's very, very complicated. But let's read on.
While on the other.
And I will say they made it this complicated so that they won't understand. They said in this letter, if you do not understand, you'll either be so, or if you do understand, the few who do, the few who are smart enough to, they will either be so interested in getting this money in the system that it won't even be a problem. Or they'll just be so dependent on it, on this love of money, that, that won't be a problem either. What else do they say?
While on the other hand, the great body of people, mentally incapable of comprehending the tremendous advantage that capital derives from the system, will bear its burden without complaint and perhaps without even suspecting that the system is inimical to their interests.
So they said those dummies who don't know, who don't get it, they'll just be, happy little mules working for us, getting some money. When we give them a little corn, they'll be happy. This is what they said, and this is what they thought of us, of the lower class, quote unquote, is that we were going to be just so dumb that we wouldn't even understand the system, and we just, go along with it. So essentially, they set up a system that just prints money and has nothing to back it, and they give out interest, or they loan out this money with interest, and you have to pay it back. So essentially, your whole system is just based on interest. It's all interest that causes this system going. It's all you owe me. That's what keeps the system going, not gold. They took off the gold standard in 1971. But even when the gold standard was still in place, when they invented the Federal Reserve in 1913, I believe, the whole system, they took it from the European banking systems, from the Bank of England, that was established in 1600s, way before the Federal Reserve. They just copied that model and put it in place in America and made it work for them, made it work for the few, for the rich. I wanted to do more research on it, but I even heard the Federal Reserve intentionally caused the Great Depression. They restricted the amount of loans they were giving out so that people would have no money and they would go bankrupt. And then they artificially inflated it when wartime came about, because think about it. They had people could barely even feed their kids at that time in the 30s, but the 40s came around. They got bombs to give to Russia and to France and all this kind of stuff. They got all this type of military goods ready to go. And there's another reason why they have the spirit of Cain on them. They know that war and violence is an economic boom. That's why America, or one of the reasons why America is always in a state of war, whether it's small or big. I don't even remember the last time. When was the last time America was not in war? Not in some type of conflict, some type of military conflict. If you don't have that military conflict going, then you have a decreased economy, because you don't have people creating tanks and creating bullets and creating guns and doing all this kind of stuff. War always creates an economic boom. That's what World War II did. World War II actually brought America out of the Great Depression. Now, they were doing things beforehand to try to help it out, but it wasn't until World War II came that the Depression ended. And after that, you had the prosperity of the 50s. Because of war, because of violence, because of killing one another, you had that economic boom. That's exactly what Cain does. That's exactly how Cain operates. So to talk about a little bit about the complicated Federal Reserve system and economic system, you essentially have fake money. I don't even say essentially. You do have fake money, and they even have a term for it called fiat currency. You can look it up. Fiat currency is essentially when a bank or the Federal Reserve lends you some money, or I wouldn't even say that. Let's not even start there. Let's start at where the consumer, at me, Yardan, or whoever, Brother Octavius, AP Uziel, whoever, you get some money and you deposit it in a bank, right? Let's say it was $100. The bank has to keep a reserve amount. So let's just say that's 10%. They have to keep 10% by rules of the Federal Reserve. They keep that 10% and they loan out $90. So they keep 10 in the bank and loan out 90 to AP Elon, right? So now it says on the books that there's actually $190 in circulation, when there's really only 100 physical dollars that AP Uziel found on the ground deposited. Now you have $190, fake dollars, and it's all predicated on loaning that money out. It wasn't a free loan. AP Elon has to pay that back with interest. So he has to take that 90. Let's say he gets, let's say he finds $100 or he earns $100 and pays back the bank $100. And then they take that. Now they have $200 essentially, and now they can loan that out, and it keeps going like that. They just increase their money. And if you pay off that debt, if AP Elon pays off his $90, you essentially got rid of that $90 in the book. Now you're only back to $100 if he pays that completely off. So if there is no debt in the system, there is no money. The money contracts. The money does not exist. It's all based on loaning it out as debt, as keeping you as a slave indebted to them. That's what it means to be indebted to somebody. I owe you. You are mine. Tell me whatever you need and I will do it. You are essentially a servant. And from this, I think it's Mises Institute, you can go get that, AP Gabaria. They had talked about that. They talked about this creation of false money, of fake money. That means absolutely nothing. So go and read that, talking about the Federal Reserve. This is in the 40s, after they kind of start coming out of the recession. They had to, one of the chairmen of the Federal Reserve had to testify before Congress, and this is what they said.
The Federal Reserves. Mariner E. Class was the governor of the Federal Reserve System in 1941. On September 30th of that year, E. Class was asked to give testimony before the House Committee on Banking and Currency. The purpose of the hearing was to obtain information regarding the role of the Federal Reserves in creating conditions that led to the Depression of the 1930s. Congressman Wright Patman, who was chairman of that committee, asked how the feds got the money to purchase $2 billion worth of government bonds in 1933. This is the exchange that followed. E-Class. We created it. Patman. Out of what? E-Class. Out of the right to issue credit money. Patman. And there is nothing behind it? Is there? Except our government credit? E-Class. That is what our money system is. If there were no debt in our money system, there wouldn't be any money.
Look at that. Chairman of the Federal Reserve essentially just said, oh, we just created that, and we bought the government bonds, and now they owe us. So we created debt, which created money, and that's how we kind of started getting out of this Great Depression. And he just said, yeah, that's what our system is, man. We create money and we create debt. We make you a financial slave, and then that's how the system works. He essentially said that, nonchalant. Yeah, that's kind of how it works, you know. You should know that. You're a senator, right? Go and read on. There's another guy, I think Robert Hemphill, who talked about the system of the Federal Reserve. And AP Yakna, if you give me Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7.
It says, along the same lines, Griffin quotes Robert Hemphill, credit manager of the Federal Reserve Bank in Atlanta, who wrote in 1936, if all bank loans were paid, no one could have a bank deposit, and there would not be a dollar of coin or currency in circulation.
Look at that. If everybody paid off their debts, if everybody was debt-free, you wouldn't have any money. You couldn't go to the bank and withdraw. Like I said, all that money that they have in the bank comes from you depositing it. They loan all that out. If everybody pays off that loan or their loans, they have essentially $0 in the bank account, only that physical money that they have left, which is probably only enough for one person to withdraw. Now, if everybody comes with withdrawals, you have nothing. This is exactly what caused the Depression in the first place in 1929. Let's read on.
This is a staggering thought. We are completely dependent on commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have in circulation, cash or credit.
Look at that. This has to be done. Everybody has to borrow every single dollar we have in circulation. Your dollars that you have must be based on borrowing and interest. Read on.
Listen to this. If the bank creates ample synthetic money, we are prosperous. If not, we starve. We are absolutely without a permanent money system. When one gets a complete grasp of this picture, the tragic absurdity of our hopeless situation is almost incredible. But there it is.
The tragic absurdity is a hopeless situation. If people stop borrowing, if people stop trusting in this dollar that means absolutely nothing, that they create out of thin air, the economy collapses essentially. You made an economy that was based on borrowing or making people borrow from you. Solomon the wise man, King Solomon of Israel, spoke about this. Read that, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7.
Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is a servant to the lender.
Here we go. That slavery, that same mindset that we saw from Egypt. This is the land that is Sodom, abundantly rich, and Egypt engaging in a high amount of slavery. They enslave each and every one of us by making us servants to their dollar bills. You loan out, now you owe me. You can't not pay that. These people create dollars out of thin air, but you don't pay your taxes. Oh, you getting it. We're going to lock you up. Even though, because you don't pay us back this money that we said is worth something, when really we just printed it on some piece of paper. And it's not even backed on gold anymore. Yeah, it's backed up on your trust or on your desire to actually borrow it, to use it. It's based on interest and usury. It's not based on actually producing something. Right. That's why it's called a trust, like you said. You trust in it. Obviously, there's a little bit more to it, but you just trust in their process or their money system. And the Federal Reserve, like I said, like the dude Eccles just said, he prints the money, he just makes it out of their right to print money and to coin it, and they lend it out. They give it to the banks, and now the banks owe them, and now the banks give it to you, or they give it to the government, and the government owes them. And it just increases, the cycle just keeps going on. They loan it out to you, you take that and spend it, and the banks loan that out to somebody else, and they take that and spend it, and it goes in the same bank, and so on and so forth. It's just a never-ending cycle of oppression, making you a servant to the lender, who is the banks, the Federal Reserve, and they're lending absolutely nothing.
And I'd like to bring out something on that.
Go ahead.
To show you the comparison between this kingdom and capitalism and our kingdom, which is going to be set up in the near future, and how just and how righteous the Most High's laws and commandments are. So we're at Leviticus, the 25th chapter, the 35th verse. It says, "And if thy brother be waxen poor, and fall into decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him. Yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee." See how righteous that is? But these folks in this capitalist society, their wickedness, their journey to be just like their father Cain, has put us all in oppression and depression. The scriptures say, and I know Chief Priest always brings that out, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. And all we have to do is look at what's going on outside here in the world. The people are in mourning. So who's in authority? The wicked. You see? So this is here, I know in this house of wisdom, we're set up and dedicated to the righteousness of the Most High as being priests, to bring forth this righteousness and to bring forth this rejoicing. And by the power of the Most High, according to what he's written in here, it's going to happen, with or without you. 36. "Take thou no usury of him or increase." It says, "But fear the Most High, that thy brother may live with thee." It says, "Thou shalt not give him thy money upon usury, nor lend him thy victuals for increase." Everything that the Most High says not to do, we see in his government, in this system, they do.
Right.
And this usury is crazy.
And the usury, what they're talking about is interest. Don't loan to your brother. Don't loan him $5 and say, all right, you got to pay him back $7 though. Don't do this. This is an abomination. Most High said, help him out and loan him. When you loan him money, expect that same amount back. Don't talk about my principal in this compound, complicated annual interest, this APR rate, all this kind of stuff. This is that complication that the bank give to you. They tell you, oh yeah, like I remember buying my first car. I was going to get it, and I calculated the interest on my own. I did simple interest. I was like, okay, this is how much I'd be paying at the end of the term. I went and I saw it. I was like, dang, how did I get this way off? This is like $3,000 difference. How did I get that? They have these complicated ways of making you pay more and being a servant to them constantly. This is how they operate. The Most High told us absolutely don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't charge interest or usury to your brother. But this is what they do. So because of that interest, you go into debt. If the Federal Reserve produce the money, if they produce $1 and tell you to pay and give it to you, they're the only ones who can produce that money, by the way.
Yeah.
They give it to you and tell you you have to pay $1.50 back, though. Where you gonna get that $1.50 back? Where you gonna get that from? Nobody. You only get it from them. That means you will always be working for them. You gotta come back to them and say, oh, can I get 50 cents, man? I don't have it. And they say, all right, but you gotta pay me 75 cents back on that. Dang, man, how does this even work? You are constantly in debt to them. You are constantly a slave to them.
I want to bring something out.
Go ahead.
Deuteronomy 28:68, that latter part. And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. So basically they're telling you, you indebted to us. You're a slave.
Yeah.
Nobody gonna buy you. So
Right.
the same way they have things set up now to the point where you can't get out of it. Period. There's no way. Because you are a bond.
Right.
A bond.
You're a slave. Because if you owe them money, that means you always have to work for them. You always have to do what they say. You can't say, I'm gonna get up and leave, I don't feel like working. It's, you're gonna work, or we're gonna take the house that we gave you, or we're gonna take the car that we gave you, or we're gonna do this and that. You're going to work for us. That's how a slave works. Anybody who knows about our black history in America knows about when we got freed from slavery, what they did was sort of diabolically ingenious. They set up a system of sharecropping. So you were free, you worked on your own free will, but they let you borrow the seeds, the tools, the land you're staying in, the house that you're staying in, because you didn't have anything, you just walked off of the plantation. And they said, all right, we'll let you, essentially you're supposed to take you're farming for yourself. You're reaping everything you sow, but you still got to pay off your debts. And they set it just the right balance where you were essentially working. Everything you made went back to them to pay off your debts that they gave you, because they gave you the land, they gave you the tools, they gave you the seeds, they gave you everything. You borrowed that from them, and you were working essentially just to pay that off. And you had a little bit at the end to eat a little bit of that corn. Yeah, just a little bit. That's essentially how we are today. How many of us are barely making ends meet? Talking about, I got a little bit. I can get, a nice 40 ounce and chill on my couch. That's it. But we are working, essentially sharecroppers, modern day sharecroppers to these banks. This is how we operate. Give me Deuteronomy 28:48 since you're in there. Since we're talking about usury and debt, just want to give you a few figures that I saw. Before the advent of the Federal Reserve in 1913, in 1910, the debt level of the United States was about $1 billion, which totals about $12.40 per person at the time. But after the Federal Reserve came, this is about 7 years later, 6 or 7 years later, in 1920, the rate of debt actually went up to $24 billion after the creation of the Federal Reserve. That went up to about $228 per person. Still doesn't sound like too much, but that's way a lot more than $12.40 a person.
Yeah.
Then it just constantly kept continuing. In 1981, the debt of the United States government grew to $1 trillion. And that's only the United States government. That wasn't all the debt in all the land. All the debt in all the land was 6 times that, $6 trillion. That was everything. And they said, during my research, that was more than all the buildings and every asset that America owned. They owed $6 trillion. And they said up to 2005, the Federal Reserve, or the federal government of the United States, owed to the Federal Reserve, essentially, and other people who invested and bought bonds, owed $8 trillion. and the number of all the debts, the amount that was $41 trillion.
I don't know how they're going to pay all that back.
Right. How you gonna pay all that back? Right. They're not going to. But don't pay your but better pay your taxes though, because you know, you go to jail. But them, you know, they probably just default and they'll be, you know, back to normal. Look at them borrowing money. I look at America sometimes as like an individual person. If you look at America as an individual person, you would think he's crazy. This dude is going out killing people, borrowing a bunch of money, more than he can afford, more than his house is worth, more than his car is worth, everything. He's making poor financial decisions, but we just trust in him anyway. It's foolishness, and we become a slave to him. And this is how they want it, and they knew it, because this is part of the curses that came upon the children of Israel. Go and get that Deuteronomy 28, start verse 43.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail.
So this is pretty self-explanatory. We talked about this a lot. The stranger, the Gentiles, will get above us very high, and we'll be very low. We'll be the servants, the sharecroppers of this modern day. While they are up here lending to us, they are the head, we are the tail. That's it on that. Go and get that. If you give me Matthew 6 and 24, we're going to try to start wrapping up. I know we went kind of long. But I want to talk about a few more things showing you how America is a capitalistic society, meaning they love money so much, they just engage in so much wickedness. In 1971, Nixon took America off the gold standard. And what they did was they struck a deal with Saudi Arabia and backed their dollar off of oil. And that became known as the petrodollar. So their money is essentially based on oil, and you can only trade oil in dollar figures. Well, you can buy it in euros, but it's all set in dollars. So everybody still has to come to America to get those dollars to buy some oil, and that is the most used commodity on this planet at this time, is that oil. So it was once again, a diabolically ingenious scheme to get not just the people in America subservient, but the whole world subservient to America and their politics and their monetary system. They love money so much, they couldn't just sell with the American populace. They had to submit or cause China to be submitted to them, cause Germany to be submitted to them, cause even, Russia, or just all these little peon, in their mind, countries in Africa. All these countries had to be submitted to America. And this is why you have things like 9/11 happening. So like I said, we're not going to talk about conspiracy of the Rothschilds, but this 9/11 stuff is actually factual. You can look it up and see it. It makes no sense. All this was an inside job. And I'm not saying George H.W. Bush did it or George W. Bush, but it's definitely the federal government of the United States. They killed their own people so that they can go into the Middle East and keep that stability so they can take advantage of it and keep that oil money going. So look it up for yourself. Look up Operation Northwoods, things like that, where in the 60s they tried to do the exact same thing. The CIA and all of them actually confirmed they were going to attack places in America and blame it on the Cubans. Only reason it didn't pass is because John F. Kennedy said no. That's the only reason it didn't go through. CIA and all these other government agencies were on it, but 9/11 definitely, and if you look at the structure of the building and look at a controlled demolition as well, it felt just like a controlled demolition. If anybody played Jenga, if you get like a bunch of Jenga pieces, get a toy plane and throw it at the top of the Jenga pieces, is the whole thing just going to come crumbling down?
Absolutely
Or is it just going to be top blowout? Exactly. It's going to be top blown out. And there was a building in Spain that was actually on fire as well, well before the World Trade Center, I think in the 80s. It got hit by a plane. It was on fire for 86 days, I believe. Wow. And guess what happened? The building was still standing. Now, the structures around it fell around are like the siding and all the decorative stuff, but the steel structure of the building still stood. So like I said, 9/11 is that love of money. They love money so much, I'll kill almost 3,000 of my own civilians so I can keep going to this land and destabilizing it. And that's why they killed Gaddafi in Libya, because they wanted to, well, I don't say they, because he wanted to actually have a currency that was based on gold again. Mm-hmm. He wanted to establish that gold currency. He amassed tons of gold and silver and was prepared to get off the American dollar standard. And what America do? Start up a rebellion in that land, back the rebels, and kill this man. That is how the love of money operates. This man's life is worth less than my dollar bills.
Yeah.
That is how they look at it. And if you're trying to upset this system, it'll kill you too. And if you don't believe me, you can look up things that they did in Panama. America wanted to build the Panama Canal. I forgot when this was. I think it was the 30s. They wanted to build the Panama Canal. And then Panama said, no, you're not coming in our land. We know how you operate. You're not coming in here. So what did America do? They started a rebellion in Panama and backed the rebels to overthrow the Panamanian government. And this is common knowledge. Obviously, more modern stuff is a little more obscure. They don't want you to know this. They want you to think this is a benevolent society and they take care of you and they love you. And Gaddafi was just an evil guy. Same with Saddam Hussein and all these people that they toppled. But it's really just to promote their own agenda, to promote their monetary system. So let's stay away from this. Let's reject their monetary system. And let's harken back to this spiritual monetary system, if you will, that we talked about before. If you don't understand virtue, definitely you want to go and watch those classes on YouTube, watch the class Fruits of the Spirit, watch the class 7 Pillars and the Power of Virtue to understand the spiritual money. Let's step away from their ways of physical means, of physical money, the ways of Cain, and let's go back to the ways of Seth, or the ways of the Most High that he set forth on this world. Go and get that Matthew chapter 6 and verse 24.
Matthew chapter 6 and verse 24. No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve the Most High and mammon.
You cannot serve, and this mammon is actually money, the money of the world. You cannot serve the Most High and this monetary system. You cannot do both at the same time. You cannot be all about getting your money, getting that paper, and then say at the same time, oh, I love the Most High, God loves me, God's blessing me. You cannot do the same at the same time. Yahushua proclaimed that, and he knew that. That's why he said it's hard for the wise or for the rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. It's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for him to come through. So this money is easily corrupting people. That is what the love of money is about. And AP Yakana, if you give me Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 38, and verse 24. But jump up to the 19th verse, AP Gabaria, while he's getting that.
The 19th verse, it says, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon the earth.
Don't worry about the treasures on earth. Obviously, we know being subject to these physical bodies and this physical society, we still have to make sure we are covering our ends, making sure we're getting enough to support ourselves. But don't be so caught up in this rat race of getting money that just puts you further in debt. Read on.
Where moth and rust do corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven.
Lay up for yourselves treasures not on this earth, where tax collectors come and say, oh, you owe us, $30,000. Come, better pay that up. Or where people can just come and steal it from you. But lay it up in heaven. Get that virtue, the fruits of the Spirit. Store that up in the storehouses. Read on.
Where neither moth nor rust doeth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through or steal, nor steal. For where your treasures is, there will your heart be also.
So if you are treasuring the things of this world, the things of earth, you will constantly be thinking on the things of the earth. You will constantly be focused on, oh, I need to wake up and get to work. I need to wake up and get this paper. I need to go and get some more people to borrow from me so I can get some interest from them. This is what you will always be thinking about. You will not be thinking about the things of the Most High. Go and get that Ecclesiasticus 38, verse 24. AP Yakana.
Ecclesiasticus, or Sirach, chapter 38, verse 24. The wisdom of a learned man cometh by opportunity of leisure. And he that hath little business shall become wise.
So the people who are not so caught up with the things of this world, the labors of this world, trying to get a good job and trying to, in this analogy, work in the plow, obviously the ancient times, but in our times, going to your business and starting up a business and doing all those kind of things, these people receive wisdom, the Holy Spirit. Read on.
Verse 25. How can he get wisdom that holdeth the plow and that glorieth in the gold?
How can you gain wisdom if you glory in this work, if you pride yourself so much on being a hard worker and everything, you would not gain wisdom because you're spending, 50, 60 hours a week working, not studying, not worshiping the Most High, not trying to figure out what pleases Him. Read on.
That driveth the oxen, and is occupied in their labors, and whose talk is of bullocks. He giveth his mind to make furrows, and is diligent to give the kind fodder.
Mm-hmm.
So every carpenter and workmaster that labor night and day, and that cut and grave seals, and are diligent to make great variety, and give themselves to counterfeit imagery, and watch to finish their work.
So these people gave their minds over to their work, to their labor. They put their minds on the earthly things. When Yahushua the high priest told us, transcend that and put your mind on the spiritual things. Focus on wisdom, getting this Holy Spirit, getting this understanding. If not, you will constantly be like these people.
And what that's going into, to give you a little more understanding, building on what the brother said, you got some folks, man, when they come around you, all they talk about is their work. I went to work today, and we had to bust up this concrete, and that thing was so heavy, man, I hurt my back, I broke my, every time you see them, they talking about their work. Their mind just caught up in their work and their jobs. And it's going to actually go a little further. I don't know how far you're going to read into.
Yeah,
but it's going to actually go into a little further. But this is what it's talking about. Your mindset is always on work, and not the Most High.
Right, exactly. That's the whole theme of what's going on. Skip down to verse 32, AP Yakanan.
Sirach chapter 38, verse 32. Without these cannot a city be inhabited, and they shall not dwell where they will, nor go up and down. They shall not be sought for in public council, nor sit high in the congregation.
So this is necessary. You do need people to do this. You do need people to herd cattle and to grow crops and to do all the type of things that make a city go on. But these won't be the people chosen for that higher calling. These people who are always focused on work, that's great and that's good, but there's a higher calling for those who have that leisure, not just to kick your feet up and do nothing, but to actually dedicate your time to the Most High. Go and finish that up.
They shall not sit on the judge's seat, nor understand the sentences of judgment. They cannot declare justice and judgment, and they shall not be found where parables are spoken.
Right. For time's sake, if you go and get Wisdom of Solomon 8, verse 5, AP Kabaria, and we'll end it on that, most I willing. So we see here, Jesus of Sirach is telling us that we will not, those who are constantly laboring and dedicated to their work, and that's it, this work on the earth, will not receive judgment, understanding of great parables and mysteries in which the Bible is written, in which Scripture is written. This is set apart for those who have that leisure time to set apart to the Most High and to worship Him, to understand what's pleasing unto Him. Let's go ahead and get that Wisdom of Solomon 8, verse 5, and Most High will afterward open up for Q&A.
The Wisdom of Solomon 8 and 5. If riches be a possession to be desired in this life.
So if you still desire riches and this gain of this world, Solomon is going to tell you to get something else.
What is richer than wisdom that worketh all things?
What is richer than the Holy Spirit that works in all things? The Holy Spirit can teach you how to do things that Yahushua did, not care about money, and then just say, man, get that fish. Go and get a fish and go in his mouth, and you'll get a gold piece. And you're good. The wisdom can show you that things. Wisdom can do that for you. The Holy Spirit can do that. But us constantly working to get riches will not. Read on.
The 6th verse. And if prudence work, who of all that are is more cunning workman than she?
And if you're a prudent, dedicated carpenter or mechanic or whatever you may be, what is more prudent or cunning than the Holy Spirit? As it said before, it worketh in all things. It can work in these mysteries in the Bible and out here in the world. Go and read on.
And if a man love righteousness, her labors are virtue. And she teaches temperance and prudence, justice and fortitude, which are such things as men can have nothing more profitable in their life.
There's nothing more profitable than the virtues that come by way of the Holy Spirit, by working and laboring in her and in righteousness. If you don't understand what we're talking about, definitely go watch the class Fruits of the Spirit and watch the class 7 Pillars and the Power of Virtue to get that clear understanding. But for those who do know, we must labor and work to get this virtue. There's nothing more profitable on this earth than these things. Forget the money system that they have that's only set up on oppressing you. Forget the love of money, following the commands of money, being a capitalist. Be somebody who is dedicated to the work and receiving the payment, the compensation of the Most High. All right, with that, we're going to open the floor for Q&A. We're going to open up to the congregation first, then anybody on YouTube, send your questions in. And if you're on the conference line, you can dial *6 to join the queue and press 1, and we'll patch you through Most High willing. Also, before we open up the floor, we have the Feast of Ingathering is coming up this weekend coming up. Next week is the Feast of Ingathering, so-called January 31st to so-called February 2nd. This is that feast of winter harvest. We'll be hosting it here in Atlanta, Most High willing. If you're interested in coming down, definitely send us an email. We have a site, Eventbrite. You can click the link below on the description to register for that feast to come down. If you need a place to stay, we have a hotel that's not far. We're associated with it, and you can get a discount. Just mention that you're with the House of Wisdom. And if you have any issues, there's a number they can call in the registration as well. So definitely get registered for that event. Click the link and join. If you have any issues, definitely email us. All that information is down below as well. And so is our Facebook. You can message us there and get in contact with us about joining this feast, Most High willing. If you have not yet been consecrated into this covenant by spiritual sacrifice, you definitely want to come down to the feast and join the group of saints the Most High has put on this earth. Any questions? And also, we have the classes, the holy singers, the porters, and the priesthood that's coming up. If you're interested in joining the priest class, where we talk about getting rid of this sin that caused you to love money just like Judas, definitely email us. If you're interested in joining the porters, those who keep order, who guard the gate, just as Nehemiah did, being strong, man, saying I will lay hands on you if you try to pervert these commandments of the Most High, definitely email us as well. If you want to be one of those holy singers, those singing psalms and praising the name of the Most High in the oblations, definitely send us an email and we'll get you in contact with a proper priest, or send us a message on Facebook, and Most High willing, we'll definitely get in contact with you. You had a question?
No, I just had a comment.
Okay.
Just kind of back on what you were saying about 9/11 and how they killed their own people. But they kind of part of the reason how the information got out that they were doing what they were doing on 9/11 was because they was making sure that the fake Jews weren't in those buildings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I heard from Chief Priest actually that there's a show, American Greed. They actually, there was a guy on there who was, he had insider tips, and he was investing in the stock market, and he was, obviously that's illegal. You're not supposed to have insider tips when you're investing. You're supposed to, obviously you invest with the risk of losing your money. You're not supposed to know. But this guy had FBI informant or CIA, I forgot what it was, and he essentially told him, hey, anything you have in the trade center, pull that out because it's about to crash. He told him that the day before, and he did it, and that's how they caught him. They caught him because he pulled out all his money and it just looked real suspicious, and then 9/11 happened. That's how they caught the guy. But they weren't focusing on that 9/11 part, that this government agent knew that was going to happen. Right. It was just they focused on him, taking his money out and being a crook. But that just shows you they knew it was going to happen. They planned it. Yeah, smack on the wrist. That's exactly how they operate. And look at how they do with these bankers. When that crash happened in the early or late 2000s. Once Obama got elected, it was, I just appoint them again. Just appoint them to my, my Secretary of Treasury and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Right, exactly. Like you said, slap on the wrist. Just that simple. Yeah, that's that.
They don't want to lose out. You pull your, say for instance, you go to the bank, you got $1 million in it. I want to get 500,000 out. You can't get it out that same day. Come back tomorrow or come back a couple of days, then you'll be able to get it. Why I can't get it? It's my money. That's
Right.
crazy.
Right.
You pull out at that time, we're gonna investigate why you pull out.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
When it's yours, it's supposed to be yours.
Right. And that's another thing, man. Money is, they're getting further and further away from this physical currency. Even the dollar bills, you know, it's based on nothing, but at least it's something physical. An example is like people who do like ride sharing and stuff like that. All you're really working for is those numbers increasing on your phone. You're not getting anything. People aren't giving you physical money. It's just Uber or Lyft or DoorDash or whatever sent some numbers to your phone and it increased. You are literally getting nothing, but just some numbers rising up on your phone, and then your bank account changes. That's literally what you're working for. Absolutely nothing. They have us in a complete rat race going after their money that is absolutely nothing. And then they want to look at you crazy when you act like, oh, I want my money, I want to do this. You know, it's a crazy system that they have you in, or they have us in, I should say. But we must endure, we must stand strong for the Most High, and He will redeem us out of this situation. Trust in Him and get this righteous order of the Most High on earth, and then we will receive this blessing of the Most High. We'll be free from their wicked monetary system. We had another question? All right.
Just to, in the beginning of time in Genesis, is this gonna, like they said, what happened then, it's gonna happen now in Genesis 47? 47 and 15?
You said Genesis 47 and 15?
Yes. Talking about the money, back in when Pharaoh was in charge.
You got that, one of the APs?
Genesis chapter 47, verse 15. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in this presence? For the money faileth.
So you're asking, is the money going to fail? Well, yes. Now, when Christ was talking about how he didn't say things are going to be like in the beginning, he said things are going to be like in the times of Noah, where people were partying and engaging in their money and loving it and engaging in marriage. However, this thing is not just written for us, as we mentioned earlier, just for our own, just so we can know. It's written so we can understand. The money did fail already in the Great Depression and the Great Recession that happened about a decade ago. Their money failed, and it's bound to fail. It's weak. It's vulnerable. Yeah. It's just that we trust in it that causes it to have some worth. If we stop trusting in it, if we stop believing that this dollar bill means something, then yeah, it will fail. If we stop borrowing, just like those, even the bankers stated, that guy Eccles and that guy, was it Richard something? He talked about, yeah, something like that, whatever. He talked about how our money is we just create it, and it's fictitious. And if people stop borrowing, our economy collapses. So the money is very, very weak and vulnerable, and it definitely can easily fail, just like it did in the time of the Egyptians. And there can be a famine, and then they will come to us, the Israelites, saying, hey, I heard you guys are spiritual. I heard you guys are getting virtue. I heard you guys are getting this bread from heaven. Please help us out. Help us with this bread from heaven, please, because that is going to mean so much more than the little paper dollar bills.
It's interesting because I think not only the money itself, but even the whole idea of the interest and all of that stuff. Case in point, classic example, my wife was paying on something and decided, okay, I'm going to double up and do some extra stuff so that I can get the debt done quicker. And I said, yeah, okay, that sounds good. So we started to work on that. And to see that system fall apart, it must have taken them, 3 or 4 different times to try and figure out what they owed, because they wound up owing her. They weren't ready for her to pay it like that. And so they just kept taking, and how many times did you have to go around? About 3 or 4 times, right? Yeah, about 3 or 4 times before they actually sent the money that they owed her as surplus. They sent it back and got all that straightened out. And even after they sent her the money, there was still something coming in the mail about you owe, or and she had to kind of get a little huffy, you know.
Right.
But I remember that it's not only the money, it's the whole idea of it, the whole
Yeah.
ideology that they're under. It's coming apart.
Yeah. Because they expect you to be the servant. They expect you to be the one paying us, or paying them, I should say. So that's crazy how they're so quick to take your money, but to give it back, it's like, nah, I don't want to do it. Right. And there are even some loans where you get it, and there's a fine to actually pay early.
Yeah.
There's a fine to actually pay more than what you're supposed to, because they want you to constantly be in debt. And if you start paying off it quicker, you become a servant for 2 years instead of 5, like they wanted you to.
I just want to comment on what my husband was saying, that because of where I worked in the credit union when we were paying off the automobile, and then it got down to where it was paid off and it was just like $5, whatever, they wouldn't allow us to go into the credit union account to get the last $5 to take it. They said, no, you got to be going to add on extra interest because you're not paying it directly.
Wow.
So that's part of it.
Wow. Yeah, it's all about keeping you subservient. Yeah, something?
Yeah, they have a name for it, especially in mortgage. They call it a prepayment penalty
Yeah.
for paying something early.
Right.
Ridiculous.
If you look at the root of mortgage, it comes from the roots of, I think it comes from a French word that essentially means an agreement till you die. So look at mortuary and all this kind of stuff. It has the same roots of death. So essentially is you are a servant to us until you die, is essentially what mortgage means. That's why they're so long. A car note is supposed to be, about 3 years, 4 years. They have now some that are longer, like 9 years. But a mortgage is 15 to 30 years. So if you get it when you're 30, essentially you're paying it off until you're dead. So you are essentially a slave to them. And that means if you stop working, that's over. We are going to take everything you have. So you have to be a slave to them to even operate in this society. You have something, maybe, Elon?
I had financed a car about 4 years ago, and I paid it off about a year early. At that point, I had a 700 credit score, and as soon as I paid it off, my credit score dropped 50 points. So I called the bank, and I called the credit union, not the credit union, but the people that do the credit. And I said, why did my credit drop that much? You put me in fair credit range. You paid your car off too early.
Yeah.
You should have waited the whole term. I'm like, why would I wait a whole year and pay you all that interest?
Right.
I saved myself almost $5,000.
Right.
And then it affected my credit in a negative way.
And now that credit score is essentially telling people, oh, don't loan to him because he won't be your slave for too long. Yeah. Right, exactly. He only wants to be your slave for 2 years. He doesn't want to be your slave for 5.
You ain't going to make no money off of him.
Yeah. Don't enslave him. He's a bad slave.
They make it where you got, he's a good servant because he pays on time every month.
Right.
Until that time frame comes versus, like you're saying, paying on, if you pay it on out, they looking at you like, well, this nigga will get money.
Yeah.
Pay this off early.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a wicked monetary system, and we must escape it. Let's focus on getting that spiritual wealth from the Most High, virtue, giving him his oblations and his sacrifice, and worshiping him. Reject their money, reject the ways of Cain, the ways of Sodom, and the ways of Egypt, and let's engage in the ways of righteousness. Is that it on the questions?
I had one more question in regards to like the Social Security system. The government keeps saying that the system's broken and it's not going to last, but yet they won't get rid of the tax. And so a lot of people are paying into that. And then, like for me, I'm in my 20s. By the time my 30, 40 years come and I get old, I ain't even going to be able to, I done wasted all that money. So how does that like pertain to all this? Why are they still doing that?
Right. And that's right. It's called legal robbery. So you have you had the politicians saying we have a surplus in the Social Security system or Social Security fund. Let's just borrow from it and we'll just throw a bunch of IOUs in it. And they kept borrowing from it and eventually depleted it. And then they didn't have the means to pay it back. So, like you said, they're not getting rid of the taxes. You and I probably won't be able to enjoy any of that Social Security stuff, but you still got to pay that tax for it. And if you don't, you're going to jail. We can just easily borrow from it and whatever. and it's all good. We can't pay it back. You know, it's whatever. They'll handle it. The servants will. That's how they look at us, that we're just servants who are just going to clean up any mess they make. Yeah. So that's why there is no hope for us. We can't say, oh, let me make some money, let me do this and that, and I'm going to secure my future in X, Y, and Z. If you're doing all these carnal means to solve these problems, they will only get worse. That's how the Most High operate. Look at the book of Judges. He only spanked Israel for a moment because they started worshiping idols. They didn't remedy their problems through the Most High. They started doing wickedness. And he only spanked them for a moment. But when they did something heinous and abominable, set up idols in the temple, the Most High said, I'm going to completely make you lose your culture. I'm going to send you in captivity for 70 years. None of the captivities in Judges were like that. So when we kept trying to back away from the Most High, things just progressively got worse. And now in this captivity, we're not even close to our own land. At least in Babylon, you could walk to it. We can't walk to Israel. We can't walk to the Middle East. And we don't have any idea of how to speak that language. We don't have any idea of where the temple was. We don't have any idea of all that kind of stuff. The captivity just got worse and worse because of our wickedness, because we kept going about trying to make our own stones bread, solve our problems in our own ways. We must submit to the Most High and worship Him and submit to His will. Then we'll receive these blessings. Then we will be free from this abominable system.
The monetary system and policy is so corrupt in this world that if the Messiah, the Prince, Jesus Christ, Yahushua, Yeshua, returned on this earth in the same form that he came in the 5th millennium, they would put a restraining order on him in every hospital. Because he would be healing and they would be seeing the lack of money thereof. He would be healing them and they would make no money off the suffering of the people. And those drugs that you was talking about earlier, he completely would heal them and there would be no need for Liprazole, Rohypnol. And they would label him, demonize him, bastardize him because he is anti their capitalistic system. So the sister asked a question about the corrupt or the downfall of this corrupt system. The rising of the saints is the downfall of moneyism, capitalism, because the Heavenly Father promised to feed us, promised to heal us and take care of us. Essentially, we will become like the Messiah, the Prince, and we will be able to opt out of this society. Most people don't opt out of this society because they don't have a choice. As you said before, they hold it ransom. You either go to work, make this money, do what I tell you to do, or I'm going to take your house. Yeah. I'm going to take your car, I'm going to take your clothes. That's extortion. But if the Heavenly Father said, no, there's an option right here, B. You can come with me and I'll take care of you. I believe all godly people will say, I will take B, option B, to opt out of this society. And so that is the good news, that is the hope, that salvation and an option to leave this foul, abominable society is at hand.
Right. And don't just take that as just him just talking about Yahushua being banned from hospitals. That's exactly what the Pharisees did. These people said, oh, Christ is healing too many people. Let's kill him. Let's get rid of him because he's messing with our money. This is exactly what they did in the time of Yahushua. So if he came today, they would do the exact same thing. They would hate him because he is anti their system. So we, as Christ-like people, must be anti their system. We don't have to go and march and talk about we're buying gold and get guns and attack them. We are waiting on the Most High to come and decimate this system where they can't even work. Tie their hands behind their back and give them absolutely no option. All right, so with that, we're going to close the class. Definitely, let's get that virtue, not this money, get that virtue. And let us worship the Most High in righteousness. Peace and blessings. Shalom.
He who hath ears to hear, listen carefully as we speak virtue, reaching the world through the efforts of the priests, repairers of the breach, restorers of the paths, rebuilding the tents of David. Our home is found at last at the tabernacle of congregation. where we baptize and anoint our nation, performing oblations upon the brazen altar, walking in the ways of the appointed Savior with poise, escaping the noise from Satan and his poisonous nature. Without fail, he accuses the brethren, using his weapons of collusion, and then sin comes upon us. And we deserve it, to be honest. We were cursed, cause we honored and were worshipping the gods of this world and was living lawless. At first to the written law, without purpose and little knowledge, serving our wicked conscience. Thus, righteous judgment was handed down from the courts of the Most High. A sobering moment, but let's be holy and pure while we endure and ensure life comes forth. Let us hold tight, secure in our roles as we strive, adorned with our robes white and clean. It might seem like the loneliest road, but we stride in hope as the Most High reveals his ideals. And so we exercise patience as well as love, dwelling safe in the seventh covenant, graciously sent as sustenance. Let us exemplify faith through hell and suffering, praying to quell the punishment, waiting on heaven's government to be established, as it was in the Garden of Eden, when Abba had breathed life into creation, and our forefather received the living word. No more are we called prisoners, we live and learn, and study to be approved as the sons of Yahweh, who were lovingly given rules to better build and preserve truth. The bricks surrounding the kingdom are the 7 pillars of virtue. This is a house of wisdom. Shalom.